Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here then hi, my name is Miss Paris and I'm a newly qualified primary school teacher here in the UK. Today I wanted to talk to you about evidencing the teaching standards. So the teaching standards are a set of guidelines made by the UK government in which trainee teachers and qualified teachers have to abide by in order to have effective and proper practice. These consist of 8 main standards and each one has a few substandards underneath. There is also part 2, which you also have to provide evidence for during your training year. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about today. I know that it can seem like such a daunting thing, especially when it's not spoken about straight away and you're kind of there teaching or observing lessons. You think, okay, should I be keeping this? Should I maybe store this away? Or is this useful? Could I use this? Especially during lockdown when a lot of people might have been doing some extra CPD or maybe some extra courses or making extra notes. Can you use this or is it pointless? It's not pointless, but can I use it essentially? So those are some of the things I want to answer today, as well as giving you some general tips and some examples of evidence that you can use towards those teacher standards. So stay tuned to the end. I will not be doing every single teaching standard this video, however I will do maybe like a part 2 or maybe a part 3, we'll see how long this video is, so that you can have evidence examples for every single teaching standard. Now, the first tip I would give about evidencing the teaching standards is to look for standards or subtypes that are very similar. For example, Teaching Standard 1 is about setting high expectations for your pupils. However, Teaching Standard 7 is about behaviour expectations and behaviour management. So you can see how the two might link. When I was evidencing my teaching standards, I would often have evidence that suited both Teaching Standard 1 and 7, so you can use the same evidence for both. So if you were to put that post-it note on the Teaching Standard 1 evidence, you could say this also supported Teaching Standard 7 subtype because this helped provide clear rules and routine in the classroom, which consequently resulted in mutual respect and mutual understanding of expectations and led to better behaviour in the classroom. So in itself, that mentioned Teaching Standard 1A, Teaching Standard 7A, I'm pretty sure some other ones. And then furthermore, and this is where you can really, like I mentioned, kind of cross-examine the teaching standards, this could be linked to the individual needs of the children. You could say, okay, for this child, I've given them a visual timetable so that they can feel safe and secure in their learning. They know what to expect next, so their behaviour is good, but also their individual needs are met. And that's Teaching Standard 5, because it focuses on potential barriers to their learning which you can overcome. And you can see how I'm waffling, but if you were writing this down, actually it would all link together really, really nicely, especially if you explain it, you explain the link and you explain the impact, and it can be really powerful, not just for the person reading it but also for you to reflect upon. My second tip is to keep any resource, any notes that you do on the side or as a result of a meeting or a course, anything like that, because depending on what the content of that course is, it will probably meet a teaching standards. So say for example you are doing an open uni course on dyslexia. That's what I did, that's why it came to mind, but learning more about dyslexia and how you can help them overcome potential barriers to learning or how you can help to challenge them, all of this would be Teaching Standard 5. So you can then, on a post-it note, etc., however you want to do it, then say, following this course, I did to help a dyslexic pupil, again, which is Teaching Standard 5. If it's on a specific subject, for example, you're not feeling confident about early maths, or maybe there is a certain algebra topic that you're not confident with in Key Stage 3 maths, then if you did an extra course on this, or you did some revision, then you can keep those and say that it was working towards your Teacher Standard 3, which is about your subject knowledge. So every single thing you do, then that shows that you are going out of your way to improve yourself as a teacher, to improve your subject knowledge, and always keep those notes, whatever it is, all those certificates even, because they can work too, and analyse those, because that is something that you were doing for yourself, but actually you've kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone because you can use that in your evidence. My third tip would be about evidencing certain lessons in a type of succession or chronological order. And the reason I say this is because you can often see the progress a lot easier when you've kind of shown several lessons in a row the work that they have produced. And sometimes it might not be you teaching, but as long as you've maybe planned that lesson, and even if it's the teacher that delivered it, you could still say, okay, based on lesson 2, I created this lesson plan for lesson 3 because I found that they needed to build on this prior knowledge, or some children still weren't certain about this aspect, so I've kind of gone over that in this activity. So already just doing kind of lesson 1, 2, 3, even up to 5, you can not only see the progress, you can explain how that progress came about. Did you differentiate better? Did you build on their prior knowledge? Did you do an assessment, which the whole of TS6 is about assessment? Did you do an assessment and realise, okay, they really didn't get this, I need to now change the next lesson and cater it more towards the things that they weren't sure about? All of these things that you are naturally going to do anyway, all of these things count. Lesson planning is TS4. Did you create a really fun, engaging lesson that used concrete resources, or were you really proud of some worksheets you did, or did you find a video that really helped support their learning? If you can explain all those and justify how it supported them and really helped their pupil progress, always link back to pupil progress, by the way, always, then that's perfect for TS4. You've done that. If you maybe did some research on the topic before planning those lessons, TS3, you've got it. I mean, it seems like such a daunting, huge topic, especially when you just, sorry, I've got them here, you know, you look at them, the whole page, and you're kind of like, whew, that's such a big workload to do. But actually, if you're clever about it and you really think about the links between all the teaching standards, actually I was going to go as far as to say it's kind of fun. I wouldn't say it's fun unless you quite like analysing things, but it's definitely not as big of a chore as it seems. So I'm aware that I've already been talking for 9 minutes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to dissect teaching standards 1, 2, and maybe 3, depending on how long this video is, and I'm going to kind of give you some examples of things you can do. Obviously, like I said in tip number 1, I think it was, you could probably link some of these evidence to later teaching standards. So if you already know that you've got a piece of evidence, you know, based on what I've said or what you've seen or heard, then try and see if you can link it elsewhere, because that would already be ticking off certain standards without doing any additional work, really. Okay, so let's get started. Teaching standard 1 is all about setting high expectations which can inspire and motivate pupils. And it talks about creating that safe and secure environment and challenging all pupils, things like that. So what I would advise you do is have a look at things that really help create a learning environment. So do you have a set of class rules or a visual timetable, something like that, so that children can come in and think, okay, this is the plan for today. I am secure and safe in knowing that after break we're going to have this, there's not going to be any surprises. That really helps me. So that could be something that you could put evidence for. It also talks about demonstrating the positive attitudes and behaviours which are expected by pupils. So if you maybe work together to create some class rules, then maybe they can all sign that, or you can take a printout and put that as evidence. If you have an active conversation and maybe you write some notes as a result of that, saying, how can I help you to learn in the best way? What can I do as a teacher to support your learning and to make sure that you are in an environment that you can progress enough in? There's nothing wrong with asking the children this, because they might come up with some ideas that you hadn't necessarily thought of, and then you can write notes of this and this can count as well. Teaching standard 2 is probably one of the most important ones, and this one you could probably link with a lot of other teaching standards because it's about promoting good pupil progress and kind of building on from their prior knowledge. It's about letting the children be accountable and responsible for their own learning as well. And so you can see how if you do, for example, a lesson plan, or you differentiate for some children that might need that extra support, then you can say, Here in my lesson plan, I have mentioned how I will be differentiating, because I know that X has maybe missed this last lesson, so they don't have this prior knowledge, so I'm building on that. However, I know that some people found last lesson really easy, so I'm going to give them an extra challenge or kind of get them to do a kind of mastery task. So you're acknowledging their prior learning and you're building on this. Also related to teaching standard 2 is having a knowledge and understanding of how pupils learn. So if, for example, we went back to that dyslexia analogy, if you had done some studying on dyslexia and then you saw that they learn best when, for example, they have coloured lines, so it's easier for them to read, and you put this in place for a dyslexic student, then you could say that you are helping that child to create good progress. And then obviously link that to TS5 as well, because you are differentiating. Sorry, I should have said probably make notes during this video. TS2E, and it says, encourage pupils to take a responsible and conscientious attitude to their own work and study. When you have older children, I mean secondary school or kind of upper key stage 2, you might have marking stations set up so that when they have finished a piece of work, they can go and have a look at the answers themselves. So not only are you making them responsible for their marking, but then if they make mistakes, you might ask them to correct it in a different coloured pen or whatever your marking policy is, and that way you can see that the child is taking responsibility for their own learning. Okay, so TS3 is about demonstrating good subject knowledge, and I have spoken a little bit about this already, but it does have 3 certain bullet points at the end, which are specifically towards English, phonics and early mathematics. If this doesn't apply to you, let's say for example you're in an upper key stage 2 placement and you don't do any phonics interventions or anything like that, it's not going to be possible for you to fulfill this substandard unless you do some kind of phonics CPD or extra research along the side, or maybe if you do it as a focus on an assignment, that could be possible. But if there's some substandards that you can't fit or you can't find evidence for, that's normally okay. Again, check with your provider, but normally as long as you then try and compensate next time, or you make sure you do show evidence of that in your future bundles, then that should normally be okay. But don't take my word for that, just double check beforehand. You should normally, using the tips that I've given before, be able to fit something for everything though. But going back to the specific standards, if you have that English one and you've kind of worked on sentence building and adding adjectives or adding fronted adverbials, whatever you're working on, if you see a child that's kind of started with quite a basic sentence and with your help they have built on it, added adjectives or details, or they found nicer synonyms, they've added conjunctions or all of these different things, and they come out with a very, very nice paragraph or sentence, and you kind of can see that progression. Just take a picture of that child's book. If there's marking of you in it, or you've written a nice comment, or you can see a progress from one lesson to another, again, like I mentioned with that succession of lessons, oh my goodness, that is very good, because you can show the progress they've made. So not only could you link that to TS6, which is about kind of verbal feedback, you can link that to TS2, which is building on the prior knowledge, making them feel responsible for their learning. You can link that to your knowledge of teaching and all those SPAG terms that you've been encouraging them to use. Take a picture of that, bingo. But it's really about diving deeply into the teaching standards and seeing how they all link together. It's just about analysing, finding those links, and showing how good you are teaching and helping pupils progress. So I will carry on filming, but I'll end this video here, and I will see you for part 2 where I talk about the other teaching standards. I do hope you go and check that out, but for now, good luck with that evidence folder, and I will see you soon. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more teaching content, and don't forget to click the bell so you get notified when I upload. See you soon. Bye!